Mambo Vipi, what's happening? My name is Anyiko Owoko and I am a lover of art, culture and everything African. And here we grant you front row access to your favorite celebrities, creators, the biggest personalities and industry experts. Come with me, you're now a VIP. This is what to expect on this week's episode.
After production has been done, a few editing has been done here and there, and we have a sit down with the director and we do a spotting session where we decide what music goes in what scene or what do we use on a sound in a particular scene. And then I develop my main 4 sounds. Usually, I think they're called motif waves. These are just repetitive sound through the different scene in relation to our character or a certain situation.
The writer just said, can I have some coffee? But, you're saying, let's deliver it with angst and he's really going to slur on the coffee line. So because of that, we're now adding so much subtext as in what happened before that. Was he drinking? Is he medicated? What happened? So sometimes it could be such a simple scene, but now because of how we interpreted it, now the music can actually amplify that, right?
When just the band started, we were so broke that we couldn't afford even that FL Studio. So we were definitely using cracked software in the early days. But I think this is a question of investing in yourself as an artist. There are some VSTs that you cannot crack, and there are some sounds that you cannot find on torrent sites or whatever. So it's a question of if you really want that sound, if you really want that software, then you save money or whatever. So eventually you convert yourself from this rabid pirate into someone who's a bit more serious, right?
When it comes to writing music for TV and film, there are a lot of questions in the industry that are always left unanswered. For instance, how do music composers actually get hired? What contracts should artists understand before scoring a film or TV series? How does licensing, ownership, and credit work? And where do artists get it wrong? Welcome to part 2 of our conversation on the art and business of writing music for film and TV. This 2-part episode has been exploring the creative process, how composers and filmmakers collaborate to build emotion, tension, and meaning through sound. We've been looking at the business and industry mechanics behind screen music, like working within tight timelines and budgets, navigating expectations, and positioning yourself professionally in this space. Whether you are a musician looking to diversify your income, a filmmaker seeking stronger creative partnerships, or a creative professional curious about the realities of screen music, this episode will offer you practical insights, hard truths, and clear pathways forwards. Our panelists will unpack how writing for screen can become a sustainable revenue stream, particularly within Kenya and Africa's fast-growing film and TV industry. Once again, I'm joined by Clue, who's a music producer and a sound designer for TV and film, Grace Kahaki, a filmmaker behind some of the most successful Kenyan series on Showmax and Netflix, and also Jim Chuchu, a renowned musician and filmmaker, and also composer. They are going to break down real-world workflows, how commissioning processes work, post-production realities, and the opportunities available for you today. Let's get straight into it. Grace, you have worked with major streamers like Showmax and Netflix, and I wanted to ask, when you share your final product with these kind of streamers, do they just look at the whole product and say fabulous, or are there times when they are particular in the sense that they want the soundtrack for the series to be a certain way? Do you get any feedback on music from them? Is it something they're also looking at?
Obviously, it depends on your client, correct? So we've gotten that feedback where the client is like, oh no, we need it to sound Kenyan. And we're like, what does Kenyan sound like? I don't know. But yeah, so you get feedback of, okay, can make it faster. I mean, you just now have to as a director, you also need to be clear on your vision to know that, okay, there should be a limit to how much feedback you should take. And also be clear to say, if somebody's saying, no, we need to change this whole song, it's all the things in creative is have that fight to say and justify why have you used this song for here, and fight for your vision, definitely, because at the end of the day, there are always going to be people who are going to give you feedback. So if you are clear and you know your vision, unless, you're being open-minded to it, like really, really, really fight for your vision so that at the end of the day, the product should be at least 90% your baby, I think.
It's a free space, just be comfortable. There was a question, yeah?
My name is Kyle Nji here. I am a storyteller majoring in film and music. I have acted in Crime and Justice, Country Queen, Salem, and the current show, Chocolate Empire. My question is to Clue. Have you ever been typecast as a producer where people feel like because you're good in this genre, they only call you for when they want music for that genre? My question to Grace. I know you worked with really talented actors who, mid-production, they changed the narrative that you had envisioned. They come with this new perspective that you hadn't. So would you usually choose the music before or after you've shot so that you can be able to have an accurate direction in the kind of music that you want to do? I think my last question, and this is because you said something in regards to we want it to sound Kenyan. Do we have a Kenyan sound? Do we actually have a Kenyan sound as Kenyans, or is it a sound that they perceive is a Kenyan sound? As a musician, I have been writing for 20 years, been a professional for 10 years. Yeah, I'll be releasing my music from this year. So I have 3 questions and 1 comment, especially in regards to AI. I'll start with the AI one. 2 years ago, when AI was thriving, a friend of mine and I experimented with AI sounds, and we actually realized that the beautiful thing about AI is it can generate melodies for you that you can sample for your beats. For example, it elevates your production level. Let me just say it like that. Because now it looks like you're composing original sounds, but you're really being pushed with AI. The other beautiful thing about music is rhythm, and AI can help you come up with really dope rhythm for your music. So that's how AI has helped the music industry.
I've been countless times I've been approached because they know I can produce a certain genre, and this has happened so much on the TVC, the jingles for TVC. They know based on what I was doing before I went into film. Some people in the industry perceive me as, he's good at creating this certain type of music. Our TVC is based on, this demographic, maybe the young guys, college people to a certain age. They see me as a potential person to communicate to whatever the TVC is intended for. So yeah, but I'm not limited to that. And I tell them all the time, I can always change and integrate into whatever the production requires of me. Yeah, sure.
Have you ever lost jobs because they think you could only do those?
I do not know. Maybe not, maybe yes, but I certainly do not know that question.
You see how, I've worked with you before. Depending on how now the scene ends up, a scene could just literally be so simple. And, it's you coming in here and asking for a cup of coffee, right? But as an actor that, can I have some coffee? There are 227 ways to deliver that line, right? So depending on you and the director agreeing and, us, working through the scene, and then you're like, okay, Grace, how about we do it this way? The writer just said, can I have some coffee? But, you're saying, let's deliver it with angst and, and he's really going to slur on the coffee line. So because of that, we're now adding so much subtext, as in what happened before that. Was he drinking? Is he medicated? What happened? So sometimes it could be such a simple scene, but now because of how we interpreted it, now the music can actually amplify that, right? It could have just been, they're playing beautiful elevator music in the end. But because of what happened in terms of the performance and what we ended up getting in the end, I think definitely you as an actor and together with your work as a director, you are able to definitely change my mind to be like, actually, let's make it dramatic. For sure. Yes, Gen Z are definitely influencing, and in terms of their attention span, it is very true. But I think it's important also to exactly what Cruz said is you must be flexible and you must adapt. In the beginning, it was, we hate AI, we hate AI, we hate AI. Yes, there's parts of us that definitely hate AI, but there are definitely parts of it that are definitely helping and aiding. So I think from also what Kyle said, honestly, there's two sides to the sword, right? Honestly, for me, as somebody who runs a production company, in terms of those billboards, we have lost work. Makeup artists have lost work. Photographers. There's a whole, long list of crew, cast. So many people have lost work. But also, there's now the other side from what Kyle just said, is that there are ways in which AI can definitely help in terms of, could it inspire you better? Could it help to click something in your mind? So when you're coming up with your TV show in terms of now social media and short form content, I think that especially if you're coming up with scripts, incorporate that. So we're doing 13 episodes of a show, but are there parts of it in which now we must definitely be flexible with this generation? Are there now parts of it now we can chop down to social media to definitely help them to engage and say, that's a cool scene. Let me go check this out. So definitely we need to be able to adapt in terms of how, if Gen Z is only watching stuff on TikTok, how now do I get onto TikTok to get them to Netflix? So you must go where your audience is. If your audience is here in town, then you better go to town and find them and talk to them, because they're not coming to you if you are still going to be stuck in your old ways and not be able to work with the time. So honestly, all of us need to be flexible.
What happens when you have a deadline and it's too tight to deliver on what you've been, asked to do?
Playing both roles, I understand the importance of the creative process. And now also being a producer, I also understand the importance of time management. So you need to be able to handle both sides. So if I know that Jim needs, how long do you need? 2 months to create one song. Okay, cool. So you're going to go to the client and tell them, so listen, Jimmy needs 6 months. So you need to be able to manage both sides. But now on his side, if you now give him those 2 months, he might take advantage, he might go to Lamu and, I'm looking for the inspiration. So he might do that. So you need to also tell him that, listen, so the client says you have 1 month. I'm giving you one. So that everybody feels like both parties have one. So I think the beauty of my job is that I get to play both sides. So time management and also respecting people's creative process and walking them through. And I think there was also a question that Anyiko had asked in terms of now the composer and the director. It takes a long time for you guys to create a relationship and a synergy. Like all creatives, you need to understand each other. And I understand that, okay, in order for example, a script writer to write a script, they usually need 3 days because they're going to say, okay, day 1, I need to clean my house. Day 2, I need to braid my hair. Day 3, I need to make some phone calls. And then day 4, then I start working. So if somebody is that crazy, but we respect the process. If that is their creative process, you need to also understand their creative process because your creative process is not the same as mine. So I think understanding people and getting to know people is very important.
If I could add something to the question you asked, from the perspective of a creative, I think it's always very important to understand if part of the working hours is a whole day of meditation, so be it. And same with me, like I work in PR and sometimes a client will come to you and say, we want a media tour tomorrow. I have to be honest with them and say, I'm not able to start tomorrow because I have not prepared. I need at least 5 days to pitch. Then I need these 5 days to organize this thing properly. So the same way artists don't go to the studio and come out with a hit record. You write the song, you go back, listen to it. There's tweaking, there's engineering, there's mastering, there's mixing. So sometimes as creatives, we need to explain that process to the client because that can actually change some of the tight deadlines that they have. If we don't sometimes push back and explain to them, this is why it takes 3 days or this is why it takes 24 hours, our creativity can be stifled, or then you end up presenting something that's not up to the standard you had wanted or maybe they would have received.
As a producer, as a creative, normally everything that I do, I don't delete. Whether it's unfinished, it's finished product, I don't delete. It has helped me so much to beat deadlines, such that when I'm required to deliver something and I know I was working on something similar to that, I don't start from scratch. I pick it up from whatever old files I stored there. Yeah.
Yeah, you just got a good cheat code there, guys. That's a very good. I was going to say cheat code. I was like, I don't know if it's appropriate.
My name is Tugi Wayaki. I'm a singer-songwriter based in Nairobi, and I'm open for work. As a Kenyan consumer, I want to promote Kenyan film and Kenyan TV, but then I think we're competing with other markets that are a lot more developed, that are a lot more exposed. Their systems work a little bit better than ours. So I just want to appreciate you guys because what you're doing in the industry, it's blowing our minds because we don't think it's possible, and then you guys go on ahead and do it. So we appreciate you, and even for your time to give us advice. So my first question is basically about that. What advice would you give to singer-songwriters? Because I'm hearing you work a lot with producers as the film person. Yes. So as the film person and as the musicians, creatives, composers, what advice would you give to a singer-songwriter who wants to get into the thing, into jingles, into composing for film as well? So there are some productions, especially Kenyan ones, that have not the best music. Either the music didn't fit the theme, or it's just misplaced, or they were really forcing that Kenyan sound. And then there's others that have nothing to do with music, that are in the wild, or they are dramas, and the music really slaps. There's a specific production, I think we've all watched it. It's on Netflix. It rhymes with consume. I don't say the name, but I think we all agree like the music was a little bit off because the theme of the series was music. So what would you say happened in a case like that? Was it budget? Was it the director wasn't very clear about the vision he had? Or time on set flies? Lastly, I'm open for work. Thank you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Anyiko. Yes, definitely. Please, guys, please. Kyle, promote your work. Promote yourself, okay? Be loud about your art, okay? No matter what stage you are at, if you want to be heard, honestly, because I spend 90% of my time on set, so I'm usually not even in spaces like this. So please, everybody, be loud about your work. Go on to where you're going to get noticed. The advice that I have as a producer for an upcoming artist is, Anyiko had actually asked this question earlier in terms of a challenge that we had. You need to know your rights. I think they're also in a better position to tell you about that, is know your rights in terms of just now publishing and all that. And also you need to understand if you have all of your rights. So for example, there was an artist that we wanted to have on my show. We wanted to use a track, but now we got an email like 2 weeks later, we wanted to use the music, and then they were like, no, actually, yes, fine. She sang the song, but I'm the one who owns the rights. So you cannot use that song, you cannot use it, etc. But this is the artist. For example, let's say the artist is called Grace. I'm the one who sang everything, and the song is by Grace, but Grace does not own the rights. So understand your rights and understand if you want to come and, either give me a song, or you want to come and, either perform the song or, record a track for me. Understand the different types of rights they are involved in music.
All right. For me, I'd say just keep on doing what you do. Write a lot of music. Do a lot of free works. Trust me, I've done a lot of free jobs. Because up to now, I think there's no production that and some of them are free works. And also, there's a short film. I was about to do it and I was skeptical about it, but I just decided to do it because I didn't have anything else on my schedule to do. And it was free, absolutely free. I didn't get nothing out of it. But the connection, the contacts I got off of that production is priceless.
For me, as a musician in this world who needs a producer to sit with, to have sessions, blah, 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 that kind of musician, there's a problem because you always have to have this relationship with the producer, and then this rights question comes up. Who owns your music? So many musicians in this country have killed their careers because of having a fractious relationship with their producer. So the greatest freedom you can give yourself is to learn how to put your ideas down in a way that can be a finished song if you're able, and if not, to make your demos really strong, etc., etc. That's the greatest freedom I ever gave myself. And then it opens up all kinds of avenues where now you can create music for other people.
For me, my question would be for those who already have the license and all that, if you're having partial ownership, does it mean you have to tag along the partial owner now to deal with the film producers, or is there like any nitty-gritties that they look out for what they select in terms of the ownership? Like, do you have to be either fully under a label or fully on your own? Or if it's partial, that also can work. And then the contracting then, I guess, has to be a joint ownership kind of thing. How to navigate that?
Partial ownership of songs is always messy, right? Because as soon as you collaborate with someone on a song, you're going to be tied together for the rest of your lives or the rest of that song's life, right? I hope you understand that, right? Because, the royalties, when they come 7 years from now, you still have to have a conversation with that person, right? So be careful with your collaborations is one thing I'd say. And generally, if some of your music that has a shared or contentious relationship, people are interested in it, then start sorting out paperwork, start calling people before the production process goes on. So by the time people are asking for papers, you at least have you on WhatsApp together or something, right? But in general, I personally, because of the freedom I talked just about now, where you produce your own stuff, that allows you to not have to be in weird relationships with people from your past.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liboy. I'm a musician. I'm a singer-songwriter, producer, and kalimba player. I have a few questions. So when scoring for TV or film, I believe I have the options of a one-time pay or royalties, right? So for those of you now who have experience, which payment structure would you advise or would you recommend? And what factors should I consider when choosing a payment structure? Let me give a scenario. So Grace approaches me and wants to license my work exclusively for her film, right? And I choose to be paid through royalties. But then what happens if she later sells her film to Anyiko and Company? How do I protect myself and make sure that the royalties payments continue? And then do they continue under the new ownership, or how do I go about it? And then how can I ensure that my rights and compensation are also protected? And lastly, what legal arrangements or clauses should I include to safeguard my earnings?
I can give examples of the two streaming platforms right now. It depends now, as I said, if I own the content, right? So for example, I've gotten your music, I've put your film on, and we've put it on Netflix for 2 years. So if we're doing the royalties thing, so if Netflix paid me X amount, and then we agree what your percentage is, then you get paid for that after the 2-year period, right? So I'll also have full transparency with you that listen, it's going to be on Netflix for, this is the period. Now, after those 2 years are done, then I'm like, hey, we've also gotten it onto Showmax. So we've gotten it onto Showmax and for X period of time, correct? So I'll tell you what they have given us and then what now your percentage is. There's so many different models. For the first sale, you get maybe, let's say, 20% of whatever the fee was. And then now for the second sale, the percentage keeps on decreasing because obviously then I'm also getting less money because this show or this film has already been seen, etc. So there's that model. In terms of contracts, I think Jim would be in the best position to give you in terms of what terms and conditions you definitely should include because he's in the best position to tell you about that.
In my experience, there's two kinds of relationships you can have with a scoring project. One is the one she's mentioned where you're commissioned, you're brought onto the team to make music for that film. With Netflix, there's no conversation about whether you're going to license or it's like they buy the music from you, they pay you in advance and you make the music knowing that it's going, right? Forever. And your relationship to it becomes like, I did that work, but like, let it go. But they do pay you in exchange for that work, right? If you do that kind of work, there's this body called ASCAP, American Society of Composers and Publishers. It sounds very odd, but like if you need to do work for Netflix US, they're going to ask you to register for that because that's how they pay you your royalties. So that's one thing to know. If you do ever get in that position, just start applying because it takes a while and you have to use an American credit card. So you have to call a friend who has an actual American credit card. Yeah, it was a crazy process. But yeah, do that work knowing that you're making this music and it'll go away. If you're lucky, they do release a soundtrack album and then that gets you a little bit more. I got into a weird position where like when Hack Your Health left, when it went out, I was getting emails from all over the world, Croatia, Sujua, There's some very dedicated people out there who are like, I watched this thing, I looked for your name in the credits, and I looked for your website, and I'm emailing you, what's the name of this song? So you have to explain to all these people that, this song will never be released as a song. Just, watch the film again. But then I've also been on the other side where people ask for a song, just a band song, and that's now the other relationship where they're just asking to use your song in a particular moment in the film. That one is a bit more one-on-one. You discuss how much you want to be paid. Those contracts are quite clear, because the thing about a film is that once someone puts your song in a film, it becomes that film and that song become married forever. But it's not an exclusive, because we didn't have to take the Just a Band songs down because they're now in a film. In that instance, your song become friends with that film. And I think in my experience, the royalties conversation is really a trust question. What I advise is make sure you get your money early. Get paid at the beginning rather than putting your trust in the royalties conversation, because you need the money now, right? That helps you to move forward as an artist. Royalties is usually a trust conversation, because sometimes the contracts say that they will tell you when the film is bought by another whatever, but that's a trust thing.
So my name is Stephanie. I'm in the music industry. I do talent management, brand strategy. Just as a lover of just the creative field and of the arts, and someone who grew up on film and TV and music, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys, because you are the ones who led the way and paved the way to allow me to be able to do what I do today and show me that it's actually possible. I have a couple of questions that are from different hats that I guess I wear. And so I tried to sort of give one to each. So the first one was directed to Grace. This is around the Kenyan sound and idea of creation of music soundtracks. So I know that that's a question that there's no one Kenyan sound, right? The same way in South Africa or in Tanzania, there's no one sound. There's amapiano, there's, they have different genres that fit into their own boxes. But as Jim said, in the past, there has been that understanding of the Hollywood tends to cling with the orchestra sound. Anyone who watches K-dramas here knows is that da-da-da, the pianos and the soft singing. Nigerians in the past had that do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So I think my question is, when it comes to the Kenyan sound, because even within us, there's the Kenyan rumba, there's the urban tone, there's there's different versions of it. Is there needs to create that in order to help further the film industry as a whole? And then the second thing was around the idea of the soundtracks for movies. I am someone who, the music does play a big role in how I'll remember the movie and how I'll feel the movie, just like you'd said. And up until now, I think one of the top listened to albums on my song is Age of Adeline. And that's just because when I'm doing something that doesn't need words, that's my go-to sort of album, right? So in efforts to try and help promote, and as someone understands the publishing world, is there needs to kind of push for that around the filmmaking industry, where there's soundtracks that accompany that? So there's a soundtrack in terms of the songs, and then there's a soundtrack in terms of the score. Does one take precedent over the other? If there is so, I'm not sure if that's directed now to you or the producers. But yes, then for Clue, the question I have for you is, if you're someone who wants to create movies or is creating movies and short films, and you're looking for people who do what you do, but do not have the budget. So you mentioned the idea of working for free as long as you understand that there is something else that you can get out of it in terms of networking opportunities or a chance to build your portfolio. Or so yes, it's for free, but there's something you're getting in exchange, So understanding that is very crucial. How do I, as someone who has no insight on this world, get access to people like you? Is there a website, they're if I'm looking for images, I'll check Shutterstock, and then there'll be a list of people that I can license work from. So is there such a thing that exists for sound production? I guess that's the question I'm asking. And then the last one, which is to Jim, is now, as someone who has climbed up the ranks, you've worked with Just a Band, you've worked with movies, you've done your own movies, and now you're doing scores for, big people, the baggies. How do we as consumers support you outside of consuming the film? Is there an opportunity for it to be B2C, or is it strictly the only way I as a consumer can support you is I know my business is looking for and they have some money, so there's this guy I know, just go and check his website. Is there anything outside of that we as the Kenyan public can do to support? Because
like it's been mentioned time and time again, we have to support our art, buying the movies online and all of that. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, you're already doing it. You're in events like these ones. Yeah, it's all about networking, trying to connect through social media and just finding your niche and grow with it. Yeah.
No, honestly, you pitch and you attend stuff like this. You pitch and you make sure that you are very, very tough-skinned, because I think Anyiko knows this story in terms of even something like Cash Money. We came up with it like 7 years ago. We pitched it for a year and there were other networks who said no. And it was very hard to hear. And we pitched it to the right people, to the agents here for Netflix in Nairobi. We pitched and we got a yes. So tough skin and pitch, definitely.
This thing you're saying about the Kenyan sound, the Kenyan identity, our work as artists is to provide the tools for that identity to be shaped, right? For that pride to come from people, right? I've been making music for years now, and when we started with just a band, people used to say Kenyan music is low quality, it's trash. I've seen such a change where clubs can play Kenyan music and kids will be singing. I've seen that transformation, and I know that there's a pride that comes with that. I think this protest that happened a few months ago, our work as artists is part of that work, because when we create these beautiful pictures of ourselves, then people have something to fight for, right? So as artists, I think our work is to reflect our people beautifully, right? Third level, I talked about this Africa thing. What people think about Black people and what people think about Africans, it's not good stuff, right? And so I like kicking ass when these people come to me and they're worried about working with an African, with a Kenyan. I kick ass, right? I over-deliver. I kicked Lizzo out of that soundtrack because I did a better song than what they had, right? So on that level, I'm proud to represent Blackness and Kenyanness and Africanness and say, you think all these weird things about us, but we have the tools. We can create even we don't have power and we don't have water and our politics is shitty, but we can still create stuff and that sits in these global standards, right? Yeah, so for me, those are 3 levels. There's one thing that I noticed that has not really been clearly defined. You touched on it a little bit. The difference between a score cue and a song. As musicians, you kind of need to understand songs, chorus, verse, whatever. I guess we all understand that. But for scores, it kind of structures a little bit different, because like you are working with a picture, and sometimes picture is weird because picture can change tempo, can change direction in ways that would be very difficult for a song to do. So if you actually listen to soundtrack albums, you'll find that the songs are quite unstructured. Sometimes you'll see a 1-minute song, a 40-second song, and it's because the song was reacting to picture. So that's one thing you need to remember, that when you're working on scores, you'll find yourself, like if I was to release the Hack Your Health music, it would be a 42-track album, because I was responding to moments rather than creating songs. And so even as a producer, it was a very different process, because there was no chorus verse situation. It was more like, which character is this on the screen? Because Hack Your Health had this thing of science, personal stories, and then animated sequences. So those are the 3 frames that I have to think about. If it's a science moment, then the sounds are a bit more electro. If it was the human stories, then the sounds are a bit more organic. And the animated sections, the director specifically asked for more orchestral sound there. So very different way of working on an album or whatever. So that's one strong distinction.
What an amazing panel, right? What an amazing group of professionals we have, right? Grace Kahaki, Jim Chuchu, Goethe Institute Nairobi, and yourselves, and me, and the sound team, and the production team. We have to big up everyone. Thank you guys so much. We've come to the end of this conversation. I appreciate your time. We have come to the end of part 2 of our discussion on the art and business of writing music for film and TV. Remember, Chloe is a music producer and post-production sound specialist and sound designer. Grace Kahaki is an award-winning director and filmmaker. Jim Chuchu is an artist and composer. So if you're looking to work with professionals in sound design or any production, you can check them out. We are looking forward to next week because we're going to be having an amazing conversation about licensing your sound for ads, film, and TV. You know, I was thinking, after you write your music and it's ready to go, what is the process of actually getting it on that TV station? Like, who do you contact? How do you license it? Who are the companies? Who are the individuals who are responsible for this? How do you make sure your music is out there on TV and you're actually making the money? You're not just trying to get your music on TV or film and not get paid for that. So come back next week for this discussion. It's going to be amazing. Trust me. That's it from me this week. Until then, see you guys. Ciao, ciao.
VIP Access Season 5 is proudly supported by the Gote Institute, Nairobi.